Good morning. My name is Neil Collins, and I'm the SCAOR CEO. Welcome to the general membership meeting, and it's our last general membership meeting of the year. And what a year it's been. Remember back on March 17th when the county first issued sheltered in place. Within hours, we had to get our whole team ready to service you remotely. Our goal obviously was to keep everyone safe, but equally what important was to be able to service you. We took the next 24 hours, we launched our transaction resource page. We knew you had questions, and it was our job to get you the answers. Things started to feel a little bit better towards the end of March when real estate was deemed essential due to heavy lobbying by the National Association of Realtors at the federal level. Still more questions remained, and your government affairs team worked tirelessly with the county to clarify showing rules and regulations that seemingly changed daily. During that time at C.A.R., it seemed like they were putting out a new form each and every week. They also helped to they launched a COVID microsite, and they created a COVID hotline, all for our benefit. And again, as a result of intense lobbying by both C.A.R. and N.A.R., unemployment insurance became available for the first time for independent contractors. Locally, I couldn't be more proud of our team and our board of directors. We jumped right in. We signed a contract with Agent EDU to provide our members with free professional development during shelter in place. We delivered countless hours of free webinars for our members internally at the local level. Our foundation handed out hundreds of gift cards to our members who were in most of need. We initiated curbside pickup for lock boxes and store purchases. And in October, we launched a whole brand new e-commerce platform to make it even easier for you to shop with us. We were one of the first associations to open up in the Bay Area on a by appointment basis. We did this by adapting to new technology that allows you to book appointments 24/7 based on availability. Not only does this provide us with a more convenient way for you to engage with us, it also allows us to maintain safe social distance protocols within the building and provides an avenue for contact tracing if ever needed. And since we all know this is a mobile world, I'm excited to let you know that by the end of the year, we're going to be launching the SCAOR Source app. We've continued to adapt, and we will continue to embrace technology because we're here to serve you. This isn't a one-time thing with COVID. This is the way SCAOR works. So let me transition into today's meeting. We have a ton of great information for you. We got Jordan Levine of C.A.R. He's going to give you his housing forecast for 2021. You're going to hear some updates from MLS listings, and they're going to share a little bit of some of the moves that they had to make during COVID. One of my favorite segments is honoring our legacy members. We have some members that have been with us 50 years. Next, we're going to talk about what happened at the N.A.R. and C.A.R. board of directors meetings, and there's some substantial updates. And lastly, our president-elect, Doug Goss, is going to go over some important bylaw changes and give you an opportunity to weigh in on that. And kicking this all off is our 2020 president, Miss Sandy Jamison. So Sandy, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you, Neil, and good morning, everybody. How are you? Hope you're doing well. We've got a lot of great information in store, so I want to kick this meeting off. This is an official general membership meeting, so as with all of our official meetings, we always start with our Pledge of Allegiance. So with that, I would like to ask everybody to please rise and cite the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for that. I hope you enjoyed that one. Well, welcome everybody. Good morning. Couple of quick things before I jump into my comments. This is an official meeting, so we're going to be recording this today. We've got a lot of great information, great speakers, so you're definitely going to want to take some notes and take this information back to your offices and keep track of this for any conversations that you may have. As we go, all of you should be familiar with Zoom by now and how it works. So if you have questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A box. We will be monitoring those as we go today. So with that, if there's any questions about the process, definitely let us know, but I think you guys should all be pros by now. Anyway, I have been honored this year to be your president, and I'm a little bit sad that this is my last general membership meeting. I missed out on some of the opportunities this year because of the COVID situation, but I think one thing I miss the most is being able to see everybody, being able to shake your hand, be able to give you those hugs, and to be able to engage with you in person. So I'm really, really looking for things to return back to normal someday soon, although I'm not sure when or how that's going to happen, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. One thing I can say for sure is that this year, I think the value of a realtor is greater than ever. With some of the restrictions we've had in place that are prohibiting buyers from sort of going out on their own, they have to work with a realtor more now than ever if they're interested in buying a house. And so what that does is it really helps our realtors and our members demonstrate and prove their value more than ever. So I really hope that you see that true. And as a result, I think that has strengthened our market. Our numbers are up this year. We are doing phenomenal in our market, and I think that by and large, that's because the buyers actually have to meet with a realtor to go out and look at houses. And what happens when they're with a realtor looking at houses? They're more likely to write offers. So I think that's really helping to fuel our market and keep it going strong. So anyway, today, our general membership meeting, the real point of this is to provide you, our members, with updates of key information of what's going on in the industry, what's happening at the local level, the state level, the national level, what's happening on the MLS front, what are we doing for you as our members, what's happening at the association, and a whole host of things that you may not be aware of. So I'm really appreciative that you're all tuned in today. Before we kick off our first speaker, I want to take a couple of minutes and just kind of talk about what we've accomplished this year at SCAOR. Now, Neil touched on a couple of items, but I think that some people were still not quite connected yet. So let me talk a little bit. Let me go back to the beginning of the year where we had our vision for 2020. I had three big goals that I wanted to accomplish this year that I laid out. One is with respect to our members, we want to provide best-in-class member benefits at competitive prices while strengthening the association. My second goal was around advocacy, to develop and implement in-class communication strategies that will enhance member engagement and advocacy impact. And my third goal was around operations. I wanted to focus on our operational excellence through implementation of new processes and technologies that would improve our productivity and efficiency. And despite COVID, and despite the setbacks that we've had, we've actually accomplished quite a lot this year, and I feel that we have accomplished our goals this year. And if somebody thinks that we're sitting home, working from home, to the contrary, the SCAOR team has been extremely busy all year long. They have implemented a lot of new great things that I want to tell you about, and Neil touched on a couple of them, but let me tell you about a few that you may not be aware of. There's often a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that are improving in the back office, and we've made some great strides there, so I want to tell you a little bit about it. First of all, on the finance department, one thing we've done is we've implemented bill.com. So we implemented a bill payment, expensing, and mobile approval process. And I know this doesn't mean much to you as a member, but for anybody who is involved in that process, driving to the office to sign a check, it was really cumbersome. And now we can do all of that online from our smartphone. So that was a huge productivity gain. We also hired a financial consultant that will assist SCAOR with their assets and their investments to make sure that we are a good custodian of the members' money and that it's invested appropriately. On the HR front, we implemented a tool called Tiny Pulse that keeps track of our organization, keeps a pulse on our organizational culture, our employee satisfaction, and also is a great tool for providing upward feedback and getting that feedback boiled all the way up to the board of directors so that we can take their comments and suggestions into account for future improvement for our members. So that was a great implementation, and everyone's really excited about that. with respect to government affairs, we implemented a tool, a CRM tool specifically designed for government affairs. It's called Every Action. It's CRM, and this was a huge benefit for our government affairs division, because now they have a system that is designed to keep track of all of their key contacts, their political contacts, candidates that are running. They can manage the red alerts, the campaigns, the key issues that we're fighting versus supporting, all the different candidates that are running and who we support and endorse, and all these things that we have traditionally done manually. Now there's a system for that, for managing it, for tracking it, for engaging with those folks. And with our first red alert that we put out through that system, we had over the top engagement from our members through that system. So we are already seeing the benefits of it. And I can't even imagine us going back and having or trying to operate without it now. So that was a huge gain on our advocacy side of the business. And not to mention all the countless work that our government affairs team did. This year was an election year, and with an election year, they're very busy because every candidate that's running for the office, we try to interview all of them, vet them out, try to figure out who's realtor friendly, who's private property rights friendly, who's going to be good for us to support and endorse. And that was a tremendous endeavor that our GAD, Tim Bobian, coupled with our LCRC committee chair, Barbara Lamberis, led. And hats off to them, because that was a major effort for them. And I'm sure they're probably glad to hear that the election is now behind us. Now, another area that we tackled too had to do with communications. So I had set up a communications task force this year with a focus on improving and putting in some strategies so that we can have more engagement beyond SCAOR members, but with the public and with the community. And so we are now in the process of hiring a full-time PR person to come work for SCAOR to help focus on those efforts. And we're evaluating tools that they can leverage to help them manage the PR, manage their campaigns, manage their reach, the sentiment, and all these sorts of things that happen in the PR world. So this is going to be a huge gain for SCAOR, and that's going to be rolling out very shortly in Q1 of 2021. So the groundwork we laid this year, we're going to see the benefits of that in the years to come. And then on our membership side, Neil touched on this a little bit, but most of you probably recall earlier this year we rolled out Agent EDU, which is a web-based training platform. Now, this takes me back to 2013. When I first started volunteering for SCAOR, I was on the education committee. And for 7 years, we were talking about how do we get some web-based training that is professional and relevant for our members. And we literally floundered on this for years. And we finally came across this tool, Agent EDU. They've got some great training, and we've rolled it out free to our members. So if you haven't already tapped into that and taken advantage of some of that, definitely go check it out, sign up, get your free account, and see what is in store for you there, because these trainings are very easy to digest, and they are appropriate for all levels of everybody in the business. And so we were really excited about that to roll out to our members. And then in addition, we also put a little bit of pressure early on in the spring, because when COVID hit and our store was closed, it became so much more important for online purchases, because we're all accustomed to Amazon. We're used to going out there and making our purchase and having it at our doorstep the next day. And our storefront on the SCAOR website was pretty clunky and not very user-friendly. So we challenged Neil to go out and find a new storefront, and he took that bull by the horns, and we went out. They got Shopify, all new equipment, all new systems, all new tools. They rolled it out in fall of this year. We didn't hardly even have to announce it, and immediately members were finding it. They were already on the storefront. They were buying things. They were buying more because the system was so much more user-friendly, easier to use, and we are already seeing success with that, including all the reporting and statistics and all the roll-up of the data now. It is a huge gain for both SCAOR and for our members. And so if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely go out to our site and check out our new storefront online. And then coupled with that, we have rolled out some smaller tools for our membership. So with COVID, everything had to go to by appointment only. So our membership implemented some new tools so that our members can make appointments to come in and get their photography or sit down with member services. And so They rolled that out in really short order, and that's been a huge productivity gain and win for our association. And I can tell you that many of the associations do not have that. I am a member of, I think, 6 different associations, and several of them are closed. You cannot go in, and you cannot get an appointment. So that is huge for our members to be able to make those appointments and come in. And then kind of moving on here, our foundation, just last month, we granted over $30,000 in grants out to various charities. And so that was a lot of the precious donations and contributions from our members that were given to us to help support people, disaster fire victims, homeless victims, COVID victims, all sorts of people who are having a tough year. And so we were very happy to make those grants this year. And there might be more about that later on. And then coupled with that, we reworked our strategic plan. We run by a 3-year strategic plan. So our board of directors worked really hard, and we came up with a really rock solid new strategic plan that's going to carry us through 2024. And so I am really, really happy about our new plans and all the great things that we're going to have in store for you. And with that, we also saw one of the benefits of COVID, believe it or not, was our member engagement. So we always try to find ways to increase our member engagement. Well, under COVID, when everybody started to go to this virtual platform, we saw that our engagement actually went up. We had more and more people attending than ever, and so our engagement has gone through the roof, and so that has been one of the benefits of this COVID pandemic this year. And so we're happy to see the engagement there. And last but not least, this one you're going to laugh, we also rolled out for our office new touchless toilets. Never would have thought that the toilets would have been a priority, but in the new day and age of COVID and not touching things and not touching people, now we have touchless toilets at SCAOR. So anyway, those are some of the things that we did this year and some of the accomplishments in addition to all the other great things that we do every single year for our members and how tirelessly our staff works here at SCAOR. I definitely wanted to give them a big round of applause and big kudos for all that they've done. And basically, what does this mean for you? Well, I think this means that we delivered on our theme. Our theme at the beginning of the year was to have a strategic vision for the future. So what do? We improved our operational efficiencies, we strengthened our advocacy effectiveness, and we delivered more value and resources to our members. So it has been an amazing year of growth through the implementation of new systems and processes across the board. And through this implementation of these systems, we have more reporting available to us than ever, more management capabilities, and therefore a clearer, more strategic view into what's coming and what to expect for the future. So for that, I feel really grateful and happy that we were able to accomplish everything that we did. And to be honest, I feel like I'm just getting started. I have so much more that I wish to accomplish for our membership, especially around some new member tools, which we have been looking at. But sadly, I only had 1 year here, and I got the mother of all years with this pandemic. So soon I am going to be rolling out, handing over the torch to Doug Goss. I know that Doug is going to be a great president next year, and I'm pretty sure that he's going to continue to deliver on some great new resources for our members. And best of all, we do have that amazing staff at SCAOR, and they really stepped it up this year on so many levels, and I couldn't be more proud of them, and I want to thank all of them for being so great. So with that, and with respect to time, let's get on with our first speaker today. I want to introduce our corporate sponsor from Citi. So Mehdi, I want to introduce you. If you're there, welcome, and we're so glad to have you.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. Really appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. This is Mehdi Kusha. I'm the Area Lending Manager with Citi Mortgage. And me and my team cover San Jose, Santa Clara, and majority of the East Bay. we're really, really grateful to SCORE for the opportunity to sponsor and be able to be in front of you guys. As you know, there is a lot of volatility going on in the industry. There's changes daily in real estate market, in lending. So it just makes it such a great opportunity for me to be in front of you and just give you some very, very quick updates about what's going on with Citi and lending as a general. So I'm glad to inform you, Citi decided from the beginning of the pandemic not to do any type of major pullback as far as guidelines. We continued with majority of our guidelines. We kept them open, and for example, we still have our 80% loan to value ratio on jumbo. I apologize for the background. 85%, we go up to $2 million without MI on jumbo programs. We kept that. We still very actively lend to almost all the visa holders, H1B, F1, you name it. We still lend to all the self-employed. We haven't imposed any restriction on self-employed on our jumbo programs, and same with borrowers that have bonus, RSU, or commission. We have not added any restriction to those either. And very quickly, I also want to highlight our commitment to our home run program. That's the program for our low to moderate income census tracts, communities, and minorities. We still have the program with very, very minimal down payment, no mortgage insurance, and we also give a pretty significant down payment assistance. So we would love to connect with you, talk to you, provide more information, and see if any of your clients can take advantage of any of these programs. So again, very grateful to be in front of you. Hope you have a fantastic rest of the day and rest of the meeting. And back to Sandy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mehdi, for that. We really appreciate having you. Have an awesome day. All right. So next up, our speaker I want to introduce is Jordan Levine. So Jordan is the Deputy Chief Economist at the California Association of Realtors. He helps to oversee all housing market research at C.A.R., which includes market statistics, survey research, industry trends, and policy analysis for C.A.R.'s legislative and government affairs efforts. Jordan has a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of California, Santa Barbara, a master's degree with merit in international economics from the University of Sussex, and prior to joining C.A.R., Jordan worked in consulting as an economist and director of economic research, where he oversaw all research and economic analysis on California's economy and housing market, and regularly spoke to trade groups, public officials, businesses, and the media. So we're very proud and happy to have Jordan here. Welcome, Jordan. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate you having me back. I'm going to share my screen so we can all look at good information instead of my face. But yeah, I'm excited to be here talking about the housing market and the economy, particularly in the Bay Area, where things are definitely starting to pick up. So I've been going with the metaphor, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, the old Dickens reference, because I think for me, the biggest point is that if you take nothing else away from my remarks today, my advice is to not throw your business in cruise control, to resist that temptation of kind of throwing your business on autopilot. I think some hustle, some elbow grease is still the name of the game, because that we still have a lot of healing left to do. And the other advice I would give you is to take a data-driven approach with your clients, because I think there's a lot of psychological scar tissue maybe left over from 2008, 9, and 10. There's a lot of conventional wisdom out there maybe that says it's not a great idea to sell your home during a recession. And so I think that really, again, taking that data-driven approach is going to be the key to kind of combating this. And the reason why I start with that kind of Debbie Downer type of or wet blanket kind of aspect to my outreach is because when you look at most of the data, be it the economic data, the housing data, when we talk about buyer demand or home sales, and we just put out our October housing market numbers for California and the Bay Area, which I'll share with you in a minute. all of these numbers are moving in the right direction. So if you're paying attention to the financial page or what have you, or you like to nerd out on the unemployment report that just came out today, like I do, you'll be encouraged, right? And so again, I just want us to resist that temptation to throw it in cruise control, even as things continue to improve and that we've made significant progress, because I think that the road ahead is still going to be a long one. We've still got, over 16 million people on the government payroll. We've still got hundreds of thousands of people here in California who are not making monthly mortgage payments. And for me, the biggest issue is the lack of inventory, right? And so, even as we've seen tremendous amounts of improvement during the course of this recovery, sales aren't rising as fast as they would be if we had the actual units to put these buyers into. And I think that that's going to be an ongoing challenge. Not that we don't think that the market's going to get better, but when you look at our forecast, although it's optimistic, it's not as optimistic as it could be. And it definitely doesn't suggest we can kind of kick our feet up in 2021 with this rising tide that's just going to dump all these new transactions and listings into our lap. And so, yes, things have improved significantly since, the nadir back in April and May, but we've still got a long way to go, and that is going to take a while to progress through. And so with that kind of, again, wet blanket caveat, let's go through the good news, because when you look at the economic data, it is decidedly positive, right? That's true when you think about consumer spending, right? So we just got new data on October retail sales, and for basically, you can see on the left that actually we had the biggest declines in recorded history ever. Consumers, in the wake of this shutdown and shelter in place, really stepped back in a major way significantly. But actually, after hitting bottom in April, we had recovered back to our pre-crisis levels of consumer spending by June. And so for the last 4 months since then, we've continued to set new all-time high levels. And this is important just from a kind of fundamental standpoint, right? That these are business revenues and things like that folks are earning. But, from a more 30,000 foot perspective, if you think about GDP, which is the kind of econ nerds way of saying how big is our economy, if you think about that as a pie chart, the slice of that pie that's represented by consumers is about 70% of the economy, right? So when you think about everything else, government spending, business investment, residential, non-residential construction, international trade, all of these things collectively represent less than a third of US GDP. And so as go consumers, so goes the rest of the economy, which is why I'm kind of putting a bullet point, or putting this in bold font for you, is that this is a really positive indicator, not just for what consumers are doing and how folks are feeling, but also for the direction of our overall economy, right? Because of all those ripple effects that the econ nerds like me called the multiplier effects. And so therefore, it's not surprising that when we did get finally this third quarter GDP number, again, after falling by the most we've ever seen in recorded history in a single quarter, right? Collectively in the first half of this year, the economy contracted by almost 36% on an annualized basis. That once consumers started to get back out there, as unemployment started to come back down, as we started to get our arms wrapped around the size and scope of this crisis, that we had a bounce back recovery in the third quarter of almost 33, or a little over 33%. And so it doesn't erase all of the damage done during the first and second quarters, but we've clawed back a lot of what was lost economically up to this point, at least from a dollars and cents standpoint in the overall economy. Here's the tail of the tape on California's labor market impacts of this crisis, and these are hot off the press. They just came out. I was frantically trying to dump these into my slide deck before I got on this morning. If you go back to February 2020, California had about 17.6 million jobs on its non-farm payrolls. By April, we had shed 2.6 million and some change of those jobs. It was the fastest and the largest declines, again, that we've ever seen. But since April, we've now had 6 months of consecutive growth where we've added back more than 1.1 million of those jobs, we still have about 1.5 million to go before we get back to that pre-recession peak. But again, over the course of the last 6 months, 1.1 million jobs is certainly nothing to sneeze at, and actually represents consistent and significant progress from an economic standpoint. These are, some of the most nerdy indicators you can get, but these are important when you think about it from the standpoint of our business, right? Because if you don't have a job, you're not buying homes. And conversely, as you get your job back and that income starts to flow, then you can start to consider your housing options. And so these are all good things from the standpoint of demand for our, the products that we sell and our services. Obviously, we got the unemployment rate, which we finally dipped into the single digits this morning officially. As of October, California was down at 9.3%. So we had a worse crisis than the rest of the US. We clamped down harder earlier, and we've kept it clamped down tighter, but things have still consistently improved the way that we're seeing in the rest of the United States. We just had a bigger hole to climb out of. And again, you can see there 6 months of sustained progress. Closer to our own backyard is, and I love bringing this chart, right? Because I think I brought this for y'all last time. But, interest rates have never been lower. It's never been a better time to use somebody else's money to get your foot on the property ladder. Again, I remind you of that as the son of a guy who used to brag about his 12.5% mortgage rate back in the 1980s, that, even if you get these kind of modest fluctuations, and I get those questions like, it just went from 2.7 back up to 2.8, like, is that going to upend the housing market? And I think my advice to you there is, well, our outlook is that rates are going to stay low within a modest band of, 30 or 40 basis points, which means that, even in a worst case scenario, we're looking at like a low 3%. And I want you to channel that inner Ira Levine to keep in mind that rates are going to be favorable regardless of those kind of mini ups and downs that we might see in any given week. The other thing is, folks are starting to feel better. And this is an interesting way to kind of encapsulate what we're seeing and where we're at today in the housing market as a function of the crisis, because this is our housing sentiment survey that we do. About 1,000 Californians every month we just talk to and ask some very basic questions about housing, 2 of which are, is it a good time to buy a home, and is it a good time to sell a home? If you focus on the left-hand side here, what you can see is that not only did the crisis not affect the percentage of folks who thought it was a good time to buy a home, it actually increased the number of folks who wanted to get into housing. Those numbers actually went up. This crisis, one of the things that we've noticed is that it's made our homes more important to us than ever before. It's really improved or increased the value proposition of that home. And yet, if you look at the sell side of the equation, those numbers were cut in half, or actually a little bit more, much more significant impacts, because there's a lot more considerations on the sell side, right? It's not just about taking advantage of low rates while the getting is good, and while I need that second home office, or to get rid of this open plan so that we're not talking over each other on our simultaneous Zooms or what have you. There's also, just the kind of logistical aspect of the health crisis, right? How do we get people into our houses when we can't have open houses? I don't want people coming in when there's a pandemic out there. All of these sorts of things. And what you see is that even as those numbers have started to come back, and we do see sellers starting to warm up to the idea of putting their homes on the market, but when you put this together as kind of a story, a tale of the tape of the last 6 to 9 months, you can see that demand got stronger and supply took a huge step back. And that's why we find ourselves in this hyper competitive market where there's lots and lots of buyers out there, not a lot of homes to put them in. And as we'll see when we get to the market data, homes are selling quick. They're selling with minimal discounts. The time on market is below 10 days in many cases. And unsold inventory is like at some of the lowest levels we've ever seen. And that's kind of encapsulated here when you think about it from the standpoint of demand having gone through the roof, while supply again took this major step back. And you can see that buyer demand across a whole slew of indicators. This is data from showingtime.com. These are requests for private showings here in California specifically. And you can see that even as they've come down through the first couple weeks of November, we're still running at 150% pace ahead of where we were at 2019. That's what that orange line is showing you here. And so, you know, and by the way, this time in 2019, we were at almost all-time low levels of, you know, unemployment. The economy was really firing on all cylinders, and we were still at relatively low levels of interest rates. And so to see this kind of increase in demand, you know, even with a global pandemic and double-digit levels of unemployment here in California up until recently, I think is a testament to just how much that value of the home has improved as a result of this crisis and the demand that we're placing on those homes, right? It's not just the place that you go back to at 6, 7 o'clock at night, grab a bite to eat, and put your head on the pillow for a few hours before you head off to work the next day. It's where you live. It's where you play. It's the classroom for your kids. It's where you're held hostage for months and months on end. And so, you know, we need a home that's going to work for us. And that is certainly a huge part of this demand that we're seeing. When you look at it from a standpoint of mortgage applications, you can see that we're, again, still running at a double-digit pace, above, you know, ahead of where we were in 2019, even with all the economic challenges that we're currently suffering through. We can see that in PED forum data. And actually, if you look at the map here on the right-hand side, you can see the PED forums were up about 18% or so in October. So folks are still out there asking to go view properties with you all. But if you look at the map and you look at the distribution of where those PED forms are being filled out, kind of a contrast of what you read in the paper, right? That you still see folks out there shopping for properties in our dense urban cores, right? San Jose, San Francisco, San Diego. Indeed, if you zoom in on Santa Clara, right, you can see that, again, biggest chunk of PED forms happening in San Jose, but they're happening still in our kind of urban areas. And so again, you know, demand has never been higher, even with all of these economic challenges that we have. And that is true even in Santa Clara. And so, you know, if you go back a step, you can see, yes, that places like Lake Tahoe, Big Bear, things like that are seeing an influx of people. And actually, if you look at the sales numbers for places like Big Bear or Mammoth or Lake Tahoe, they're up by 100%, right? And so if you look at those numbers, it might lead you to believe that everybody is just, there's a mass exodus, right, from the core urban areas. But keep in mind, these are huge numbers from the standpoint of what, you know, the level of home sales typically looks like in Big Bear or Lake Tahoe. But still, most of the people are living, you know, I haven't given up on the cities, and you can see that most of the people are still, by and large, shopping for homes in the areas where the population centers have historically been, and that's true in Santa Clara as well. And so, indeed, when you look at how this is playing out across the housing market here in California overall, in October, sales were up almost 20% from October 2019. We're at a 484,000 unit pace. That's the closest we've been to 500,000 home sales in over a decade, excepting last month when we were slightly higher. But if you look at the year-to-date number, right, and I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but 1.3% year-to-date. That means that through the first 10 months cumulatively, we only have 1.3% fewer home sales this year than we had through the first 10 months of last year. And when you look at that through the lens of a market that was down 30 and 40 plus percent in April and May, it's a testament to just how strong the last few months have been, that we've almost recovered all of that lost ground. And likely when the dust settles on 2020, we'll end up with even more sales than we had in 2019 as this recovery continues. But we do have an inventory problem, right? So we're down at 2 months of supply. And so home prices are still up near all-time high levels of over 700,000. That's a median price, right? That means 50% of the homes are selling for even more than 700,000. And I know that's no secret to you all in Santa Clara, right? We have the local data, but in some ways, I almost didn't even need to bring it, right? The Bay Area numbers were up about that same 19%, prices rising 17% as well. For the Bay Area as a whole, that's the 9-county Bay Area that includes Solano and Sonoma. The whole Bay Area now has prices in excess of $1 million, and that's something that wasn't true back at the height of the last cycle. Santa Clara, sales are up even more, right? 32% on a year-to-date basis, price growth of 16.8%, but you do see those listing numbers starting to fall off. And so again, it's a supply-driven phenomenon. That's why the median time on market here is 8 days, and that the median sales to list price ratio is actually above asking price. It's that we have so many buyers and not enough units to put them into. But if you kind of drill down across the region, not all markets were created equal. You can see sales up big in our lower end markets, and we're going to go from lowest price to higher. I don't have every city, but just to give you a smattering. But if you look at those kind of entry level markets, right, that's where supply is down really, really bad. And so even as we continue to grow home sales, there's a limit to our ability to stay optimistic, because again, we can't sell homes that aren't actually for sale. But you see these same trends: homes selling quickly, minimal discounting. In Morgan Hill, sales are up tremendously, but listings are down a lot as well. And so you can kind of see a similar theme everywhere. Milpitas is the standout, right? There's a big increase in home sales and in home prices, but there we're actually seeing a few homes actually start to come onto the market. I wouldn't call it a flood, because we're still seeing a median time of 10 days. But there and in Palo Alto, as we'll see, listings are actually rising, but across the county, right? It's just, I don't want to beat these to death, but I just wanted to illustrate that this is kind of a broad-based phenomenon that we're observing. We also saw an increase in listings in Santa Clara, but again, fast time on markets, prices are still rising. And so again, we sold more than what we have in terms of active just last month. Los Gatos, same story. Cupertino, the top end of the market in particular, where these higher median price points are doing exceptionally well relative to what they were doing at this time last year. And that's true pretty much across the board. And so that's the good news, right? When you look at all of the economic data, it's doing well. When you look at the housing data, that's filtering through. And in fact, housing is recovering even faster than the economy at large. But what I don't want you to do is, again, throw your business on autopilot, go grab yourself a bottle of champagne and pour yourself a nice mimosa and think that just through osmosis that the rising tide is going to lift all boats. Because, there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. And you can see over the last couple of days, we've had a significant surge in COVID cases, which, have the potential to impact economic activity to the extent that we may have to shut down again. It just depends on how much of a lid we can keep on this. In the rest of the nation, things are much worse than they are here, but we have started to follow suit with this spike in the health front. Other thing is on the consumer side, right? I talked about how spending is 70% of the economy. Well, we've seen consumer confidence start to stumble. I'm not clear on this, being anything more than a, kind of uncertainty about the presidential election or something like that. 1 month obviously does not a trend make, but if consumers do decide to take a step back, that will obviously have disproportionate economic implications. So we're just going to have to keep an eye on that one. But the other point I would make is that even if consumer spending does continue, if you break down the type of consumer spending, right, versus with brick and mortar versus non-store retailers, which is the data nerds way of saying online spending, that's what I'm showing you on the left-hand side. And you can see that brick and mortar is still a bigger chunk of the overall spending basket. But if you actually index those just to see, what the experiences have been of spending, you can see this is what I call the kind of Jeff Bezos versus everybody else effect, right? Everybody else had this huge decline that we're still trying to work our way back from, whereas it's never been better to be an online retailer. And this is kind of a microcosm of what you might have heard called the K-shaped recovery, right? So for folks who have jobs that are allowing them to work from home, you're a spreadsheet nerd like me, you work for a tech company, you're a programmer, things like that, you've been much less impacted by this crisis than folks who require a face-to-face presence in order to maintain their income. Unfortunately, you can't serve a meal remotely, right? We can't zoom in to clean a hotel room, and that is kind of what you're seeing play out here across this kind of Main Street versus Wall Street impacts that I've laid out for you here. The other thing is that even as the economy has made significant improvement, we still have, again, a long row to hoe on this one, right? We've come down from almost 31 million people on the government payroll back in May, to just about half that level in the most recent data that we have for pandemic claims, so that we can do this kind of full picture of unemployment. And so yeah, we've had a lot of improvement, but if you go back and look at the maximum number of concurrent claims at any given point in time over the last 50 years, you can see that yeah, we're not 8 to 10 times worse than ever, but we're still about 2.5 to 3 times worse than ever. And so that doesn't mean that the economy is not going to continue to move forward, but we've got to be kind of reconciled to the fact that this is still going to take a while, and we don't have this kind of full immediate bounce back. I will throw this one out there for your consideration as well, that the stock market may be getting ahead of itself. If you look at the price to earnings ratio, which is to say how much is the U.S. economy worth if you measure it by the value of all publicly traded companies on the stock market, and you divide it by how much money the U.S. economy is making in terms of business profits, historically that number is around 10 times, right? The stock market's worth 10 times whatever these companies are making. If you look at the tail end of this chart, valuations have gone up a lot more than earnings. That doesn't mean this is a bubble. We could be seeing a delayed earnings effect as these consumer spending numbers trickle through to corporate profits. But I always get a little bit concerned when everybody's celebrating the V-shaped stock market recovery, because at some point we're going to have to make the money to back up these valuations. Again, the other thing is there's a lot of folks not making mortgage payments. We have a moratorium on evictions, on foreclosures, and all of that stuff. And the problem is far less bad than it was back in 2009 or 10. We're only at about 6.5% of our mortgages seriously delinquent, compared to almost 12% back at the height of 2009. But we're going to have to come to grips with these eventually, right? And we still haven't figured out who's going to take the haircut. Is it going to be the homeowner? Is it going to be the lender / institutional investors, the government, some combination therein? We don't know, but we will, somebody is going to have to pay the piper on this stuff someday, presumably. The other thing is when we analyze the housing market itself, right? And this really gets to the crux of my kind of autopilot argument, is that we have to also not just look at the growth rates, which I've already shared with you and are very accelerated, but also to look at the levels, right? And so this is weekly closed sales in terms of the number of sales that we're closing every day on average each of these weeks. And what you can see is that these numbers haven't started to fall off the way that they normally do in a winter time, right? By October, November timeframe, usually we have a much stronger seasonal dip, and that is not happening this time, which is why we're getting those really elevated year-to-year growth rates when we compare, October to October of last year. But what we don't see is that the actual number of sales is going up and up and up. We're just remaining unseasonably strong, which we will certainly take, and that's why the market is so hot. But what it doesn't show us is that there's just an ever increasing number of transactions for us to, again, throw it in cruise control and just expect that those that our market share will just automatically fall in our lap. And you can see on the right hand side the same story across price segments, right? We had this really strong bounce back in May and June, even into July and August, and these numbers haven't gone negative in October and November, and these run right up through the weekend that just ended on the 14th. But what you don't see is that the growth rates are actually increasing, right? And so we're not adding more and more sales. And in some ways, you could argue that this strong winter season that we're having is just because that normal seasonal ramp up that typically happens at the end of March, and then the market kind of plateaus through the beginning of August before starting to taper off, was just shifted off by the 2 to 3 months that we were in lockdown, because you see that ramp started to happen towards the end of May. We kind of plateaued through July all the way through September, but it does look over the course of the last couple of weeks that things maybe have started to follow that seasonal pattern again. So it doesn't mean things are moving in the wrong direction. We're still optimistic, but again, just kind of warning you off this idea of throwing it in cruise control, because in the Bay Area, you see the exact same thing playing out in the weekly data. And it's a supply story, right? We haven't added or seen an increase in new listings, for the better part of the last 4 to 5 months. And in fact, new listings have started to fall off. This year, listings peaked in April. That usually is something that happens in July or August. And so even as we've had all this great growth in home sales, it's really come at the expense of exhausting what we had on our shelves in the first place. It's not that we, sold a can of soup and then the grocery market put up another can right behind us. No, this is really a coming in and clearing out the shelves type of a phenomenon that we've seen, which is why even as we remain optimistic about the economy, there's an upper bound to how much we can grow when there's nothing left to sell. So I know you're going to rip out the shepherd's hook on me any moment, but I do want to just go through a couple of these to show you that this is happening here, right? Active listings are down over 20% just from where they were a few months ago in the Bay Area. They're down even more than that if you think about homes under $1 million, right? And so those are down by about 50% from where they were. And so you can see this really is an exhaustion of our underlying supply. And as a result, realtors are starting to get less optimistic. Fewer are telling us they think listings are going to go up. In our weekly survey of realtors, which I highly encourage you to go fill out every week for us to let us know what's going on with your business. But fewer are optimistic about sales as well. And so when you look at the competitiveness stuff, not to beat this to death, but it's all supply because prices are going up, right? We see fewer homes selling with a discount. We have especially a lot fewer selling with a discount at the bottom end of the price spectrum, and homes are selling quickly. So, that all being said, I do want to just go through a couple of quick fundamentals before I leave you with the forecast, because even though I threw the wet blanket on and I don't think, that we can just throw it in cruise control, I also don't think it's as bad as maybe what some of those folks out there are telling you. Delinquencies have already started to come down. 41% of forbearances have already exited. Some of those, a huge chunk, is because those folks are already current. The other 15%, huge slice, is because folks have been able to sell those homes because they have home equity, which is something that wasn't true last time around. We had a lot better fundamentals coming into this thing. We didn't have all the cash out refining, the ninja loans.
Your call has been.
And we also see that, just numerically, right, that the volume of using your home as your bank account and taking everybody to Europe or buying that boat or what have you was just a much smaller phenomenon over the course of the last decade than it was before. We didn't have half the market as option arms, right? It's been 15% or so over the last couple of years, and that's been true for the better part of the last decade. So you don't have all these folks in ARM loans that are going to wake up and have their payments double on them overnight and have no choice but to walk away from that home. They're in fixed rate mortgages as long as they keep their jobs. They know what their obligations are. They also had a balance sheet that was in much better shape financially. Debt and broader financial obligations, when you measure them as a percent of income, weren't just at kind of pre-crisis levels from 2008. They were at the lowest levels we've ever seen in decades, right? We actually had savings accounts again. Remember those things that your grandparents used to put money in for you on your birthday? Those are things that actually were the result, the kind of silver lining of how difficult the crisis was in 2008 to 2010, was that we did go through and start to get our financial house in order again. And the biggest thing is that we weren't in a price bubble, right? If you take prices and you adjust them for current interest rates, and then you look at them as a percentage of income, they weren't particularly elevated. Yes, this number is higher at 43% than it would be for other states in the nation. But from a historical standpoint, prices were basically right in line with where they were as a percent of people's income. We've never been a particularly cheap state to live in, but it wasn't in bubble territory. And that is a critical distinction. And so with all of that being said, that's why we're optimistic, that even though we have a long way to go, that things will continue to improve. We're expecting GDP to expand by 4.2% next year, and to continue to add jobs to non-farm payrolls at about a 3% clip. But it is going to take a while to get back to those all-time low levels, which is why we still have that annualized unemployment rate number remaining fairly elevated. When it comes to how that's going to matter for the housing market here in California, you can see that we have 2020, once the dust settles, actually increasing in terms of closed transactions from where they were last year, even with those huge declines that we had back in the spring. Prices are going to be up by more than 10% this year, again, once the dust settles on December, and that growth is going to persist into next year. So we do have sales going up by another 3.5%. to about 412,000 units, right? And that is going to be the strongest pace of home sales in the last 4 to 5 years. We also have prices continuing to go up, but only by about 4.4%. That's not because we think price growth is necessarily going to slow down, but we do expect to see the market shift away a little bit from that 5 million plus price segment where it's been really hot lately, back a little bit towards the bottom end of the market, which will mute that median price growth a little bit. Of course, more important than the forecast itself is my assumptions. And so baked into that forecast is the assumption that we do have a ramp up in COVID, but that we're able to keep a decent lid on it so that we don't have to have another 2 to 3 month shutdown, in which case, again, the economy will grow by 4.5% or so, and that inventory that interest rates will remain low as well, in which case we think foreclosures are going to be much more manageable, less than 10% of the market. And because they're so much demand and not enough supply, those foreclosures will go with a discount, a modest discount of less than 10%. That being said, with all the uncertainty, and I know I'm trying to rush through this to keep us on track, but I will provide all these slides to Neil and Spencer and everybody so you can go through them again. But if we aren't correct and that we're not able to keep a lid on the outbreak during the winter, we do have much deeper economic implications, right? In that case, we don't expect the economy to grow next year, and we won't get that income growth that we were projecting, in which case, even with more government assistance and things like that, fewer homeowners are going to be able to hold on to those homes, in which case foreclosure inventory might be something more like 25 to 30% of the market, and those individual foreclosures will carry a much bigger discount. If that kind of a scenario plays out, we're talking about a market that's down 12.5% next year and prices that are down 15 to 16%. What I will say about that worst case scenario is that we're still feeling pretty confident in our baseline, which is that we'll be able to keep a lid on this, and that things will continue to progress, and that we will get that economic growth next year, particularly with these announcements of a virus. But even if our worst case scenario comes to fruition, this is where I try and reassure you, we're still, talking about a decline that's less than half as bad as what we saw back in 2009, right? And so that hopefully can reassure, because again, we just had much better fundamentals from a household balance sheet standpoint, from a mortgage market standpoint. We didn't have those kind of fundamental cancers and imbalances under the hood of our economy that we had back in 2009. So that at the first kind of hint of economic shock, we saw this kind of cascading effect or snowball effect really start to unwind all of these already pre-existing conditions, if you will, in terms of bad economic fundamentals. Whereas this time we had a big shock, but it was happening to what was otherwise a relatively healthy economy. As my 10-year-old daughter would say, the bones were good in terms of our overall macro environment. We even have a best case scenario where we think maybe the lack of listings doesn't show up in terms of foregone home sales, but shows up all in prices, in which case we could see sales grow even more than what we're projecting, up to around 430,000 plus units, with even more price growth up to a median of almost 720,000 next year. And so for me, if I had to put a bow on it, I would say that yes, things have gotten better. If you read the paper, if you nerd out on all the economic data with me every week, you're encouraged, right? And you can see that playing out across the esoteric data nerd stuff. You can see it in housing demand. You can see it in home sales and prices. No, you don't want to go out and pop the champagne corks, right? You want to still, elbow grease and hustle, I think, is the name of the game, because we've still got a lot of healing to do in an uncertain economic environment. But more importantly, we can't sell homes that aren't for sale. And so we have a lot of work to do on the supply front. And so even though we're optimistic, we're remaining cautiously optimistic. And so I will again invite you to participate in our weekly survey of realtors. You can take it every single week to let us know how your business is going. It takes 5 or 10 minutes. We do a quarterly drawing. If you do every survey of the quarter, you can be entered 12 times. But really helps us to be able to let you guys know what's happening, is to actually hear from you all directly. And so with that, I will say thank you to Spencer, Neil, Sandy, everybody for having me back. And if I haven't beat you into submission, I'm happy to entertain any questions that might have come up along the way.
Well, thank you, Jordan. That was that was some really good information, and that was great to see and very encouraging. And so thank you for that. Just so everybody knows, we will get a copy of these slides and we will share them out. So don't worry, we will get these in your hands if you're interested in having them. I know I definitely am. There's some good information in here. Great talking points with my clients for sure about what's to come. So thank you for that, Jordan. We didn't have too many questions. There was a question about a retail slowdown and recovery with new orders and buying up of old inventory. Not sure. The question's not completely clear, but it's in the Q&A if you want to check it out. And
yeah,
then,
definitely. The retail numbers have slowed down. So if I talked about how we were back above all-time high levels for the last 4 or 5 months in terms of consumer spending, but the pace of that recovery has slowed, right? So it continues to go up, but at a slower and slower pace. I think part of that is just because, the pace of the economic recovery is slowing. So we continue to make, chip away at the unemployment overhang. But, at the beginning, the initial phase in June and July and August, we were coming down by a couple of percentage point at a time. We were adding, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs. We're still adding jobs, but it's just at a slower pace. And I think that kind of limits how much money, how much of a new influx of money can hit the retail sales numbers every month.
Great. And then we've got a couple of questions around Prop 19 and the impact that's going to have on our inventory levels.
Yeah, so that is, we're optimistic that that's going to help. You have a lot of folks, particularly in markets like the Bay Area, where there's been so much price appreciation over the last couple of decades that, folks face a pretty significant property tax penalty if they want to move. And so that should, removing that penalty aspect of it should provide a motivation to get folks moving and to free up some of that older housing stock for those entry-level home buyers. The thing I would kind of caution against, maybe towards the same theme of not throwing it in cruise control or expecting that this is the silver bullet that's going to save the day for the housing market, is that that's only one side of the equation. Getting rid of the penalty for moving is half the story, but I also need to then have a home available for me to want to go and move into, right? And so even if I don't have a penalty, I don't necessarily want to be out there fighting over a limited number of homes that I actually want to move into. And so what we're hopeful for is that even though we expect that, that to be the reason why it takes a while for this to really ramp up, that, hopefully the ultimate goal is that it stimulates new construction of like senior housing, or at least housing that's attractive to these folks, these long-term homeowners who want to move but can't, so that, we get rid of the penalty part, but also then give them the destination place that they want to have. And so we think that it will have, an improvement in terms of supply, but it's going to be one that kind of takes a while to ramp to full speed.
And Jordan, before we go on to the next speaker, maybe you could also comment on this recent COVID spike and the states rolling back to purple and the governor's trying to cancel Thanksgiving and more lockdowns and curfews and where this is going and what you think the impact will be.
Well, we've known that the wintertime was going to be a tough time for a long time, and I don't make any projections on COVID. I don't have the expertise to be able to do that, but I will tell you we went to the gathering of econ nerds. The National Association of Business Economics had their conference about a month ago, and there was a lot of great speakers from the Fed and far more qualified economists than I. And the consensus was that the virus is the boss, right? That's why I share those numbers, is because if we can't keep a lid on it, if we do have to re-shut back down, you can see what happened to the housing market back in April and May, and it's I think that's a decent way to extrapolate what something like that would look like if we re-shut down for a couple of more months. And so we're right on the precipice. We could see the light at the end of the tunnel with all these vaccines and things like that. And so we just got to eat the peas, or whatever your favorite analogy is or metaphor is for that, and just kind of take the medicine and hunker down until we can get back to normal. Because the longer we delay the recovery, the harder it is to recover, right? It's one thing to bounce back from a couple months stint of unemployment. It's another thing if you're unemployed for a month or a year or more. It becomes a much different game to recover from a temporary shock versus something that's longer lasting.
So true, so true. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a wealth of information. Really good to have you. Thank you again. And with that, I think we're going to jump into our next speaker here. So thank you.
Thank you all so much.
All right. So next up, we've got our Customer Experience Manager from MLS Listings, Jeff McBride. So Jeff, if you're there, welcome, Jeff. Jeff's going to give you an update from MLS Listings and what's new and what's happening over there. So hi, Jeff.
Hi, Sandy. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. As you know, we have a lot of exciting things going on at MLS Listings. And to kind of show you where to get that information, I'm going to do a live demonstration. So as we all know what happens when you go live, anything, really. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And so if you, as you all are familiar with, you've been to this screen before, but I don't know how many of you have been to here, the Pro Support Community page. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And this is really the foundation of all of the customer support team at MLS Listings. So any updates, anything that we're working on, or anything that that we're really proud of, or that we really want our subscribers to know about, we have posted it here. And I know the banner looks great and all the buttons are awesome, but one of the most important things on this page is this search bar. This search bar will unlock about 400 to 500 knowledge base articles, anything from how to do an auto email to how to set up contacts in Matrix, how to set things up in Paragon, how to use some of our other tools, some of our cloud tools. We get videos and knowledge base articles from all of our vendors all the time, so we're constantly updating the site. So one of the things that that I'll point out here next, that where we have a lot of our upcoming new items, is here right on this banner ad. And if I go ahead and click on this banner, it'll take you to a knowledge base article. And inside that knowledge base article, we'll have the most updated information we have on that subject. For example, members only. I don't know if any of you guys were able to join MLS Listings Live yesterday. Here's a complete recording, complete video of that recording here. And we have an overview here of that really goes in depth on what members only is. And then we have a how-to right underneath it. And as we get closer to the launch date, which is December 1st, we're going to add more and more content to this. We're going to have frequently asked questions and other things in here. It's a really good resource for all of our subscribers at MLS Listings, and a lot of our support folks use it as well when they need a refresher on a specific tool or something like that. Also, on the banner here, we have our full CLEAR cooperation policy. I know you're all familiar with it, and maybe some are a fan, some are not, but if you're looking to report, you can use this form, add it in, click, and it'll get right to one of our compliance members, and they'll start taking a look at that for you. One other thing that we have is we have the latest in the NorCal MLS Alliance. Now this is tied to an older article, but for any updates, you'll click on this this banner and it'll take you right to the latest and greatest information. One of the things that we are very, very proud of, and it was something that we were able to complete just about a month ago, is the Welcome New Subscribers page. So if you have people that are new in your office, or brokers you have added new agents, this is a great place to go. It has everything that you can think of that a new subscriber would need to know. We have a nice welcome video from our CEO, Dave Wetzel. We have getting started Matrix 101 videos and listing management videos, overview on CLEAR cooperation. And then down here, we have tabs for all of our tools here: listing management, compliance, rules, tools, and apps. And one of the cool things that I'm pretty proud of is if you say, for example, you may have missed a training that you were really excited about going to, but you had a client call or something during that time. You can go back to this training link here and find that video. Say, for example, oh, I really wanted to see something on Matrix 201. Well, we have that video right here for you. And the way it's kind of set up is we have a quick little introduction about what you're going to learn in that video. And then we have the video right here for you to watch. So you can access it anytime. And we know that that people in your industry, you work crazy hours, and it might not be between our open hours from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday. So if you run into a spot where you need to try to answer a question, please feel free to go up here to the self-service search box here, enter in your question, and it'll pop out an answer. And I'll show you a quick example. So one of the questions that we get all the time in the call center is the auto email question here. I'll type it in. And the way it looks is you'll have several different knowledge base articles. And say, for example, you're like me, you like to watch the video and you learn faster that way. Just look at the end of the article. It'll say Matrix, which is the tool. It'll show you what the subject is. And then at the end, it'll say video. And it'll take you right to that video. So very helpful stuff there. Say if you can't figure out how to do something in specifically, you can chat with our team down here on the right-hand corner. There's a chat button, and you can go to the help area here, where you can fill out this form, send us a note, or if you just want to give us a ring, we got our phone number right here as well. So very helpful stuff. We're always there to help any way that you feel comfortable. So I know a lot of people in the past have always kind of like, hey, I was on vacation and kind of tuned out. I want to know what's going on with the MLS. So you can go here at news and announcements and see all the latest articles that have come out. And also we have our market reports here. So all that those great Aculus market reports. And you can go to MLS Listings Live. We have, so yesterday we completed our 11th MLS Listings Live show. And next year, I can tell you, we have some great things planned for you all. So back to the homepage. And if you have any questions, you can let me know. Say, for example, if you were looking for something and could not find it, you click right here on this feedback button, and it'll take you to a survey where you can fill it out and tell me exactly what we're missing. And then in the future, we'll add that for you. Okay, well, I think that's about it for me. I'll stop sharing, yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for that. Appreciate all those great updates. I learned a couple things there as well that even I didn't know. So.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Thank you
again
for the time.
Joining us today. All right, so next up, I have the pleasure to do something fun that we love to do at all of our general membership meetings, and that is to congratulate many of our Legacy Award recipients. And so we have quite a few, so give me a minute and let me get my PowerPoint up here and get this going, and then we will get started here. We have a lot of members that have been with SCAOR for a very, very long time and have been very loyal to us, and we want to take a few minutes here to recognize those folks. And so we are going to start off here with our 25-year veterans, so to speak. And let me call out the names here so we can congratulate these folks. And I have to first apologize if I mispronounce anybody's name or I call you a she instead of a he or whatever. I'm sorry. It's I just guess I'm off my game today. But my apologies in advance. But here it goes. So let's congratulate for our 25-year category: Ellerina Ambrosio, Margaret Apple, Susan Beatles, which I'm closing a deal with her on Monday. So congratulations, Susan. Jai Bagwan, Katie Chow, Stephen Colston, Patrick Crema, Tao Ngoc Dang, Nelson Gagarin, Rose Marie Goff, Sandy Granwall, Michael Guerra, Mohammed Harandi, Liang Wang Hao, Alice Hunt, Rafael Insignares, Kana Kalida, Nam Kai, Karen List, Frida Manning, and Sonia Nanez, but that's not all. And our 25 category continues on with Stanley Perry, Mike Ramos, Kathleen Reinholm, Marjorie Strohmeyer, John Su, Amir Tozy, Dung Tien Tran, Chris Trong, Nanus Truman, Marion Wells, Patricia Ray, Lelia Yin, and Azucena Zipagan. So congratulations, everybody, for 25 years of service with SCAOR. Thank you, and congratulations. All right, let's get to our 30 years. All right, 30 years with Santa Clara County Association of Realtors. Let's congratulate Clarit Almeida, Sean Ansari, Athen Antonopoulos, Nassef Botros, Kathleen Capurso, Marnie Carlson, Francisco Carrasco, Lance Chang, JP Chimienti, Rosanna Chui, Philip Costanza, Janet Dayton, Luis Delgado, Mona Lee Devlamic, Sim Deep, Andrew Din, Monica Farnsworth, Ann Hansen, Andrew Hartland, Mista Hernandez, and Kim Hickey. And in our 30 years continues on with Judy Kuo, Janie Larner, David Locke, Norma Lopez, Kathy Lowe, Jeannie Mackey, Angeliki Markolefas, Michael Mason, Brett Matos, Sydney Meng, Salih Mohammed, Newell Monroe, Trung Nguyen, Jimmy Nguyen, San Nguyen, Jeffrey Nwosu, Dorothy Oliver, Fernando Poe, Han Kwok, Sri Ram, Joseph Ramirez, and Margie Rideway. And there's more. Ronald Robinson, Celia Salazar, Tim Shelton, Basant Somani, Mary Squire, Daniel Thurot, Donald Tornan Casa, Daniel Tung, and Linda Wolf. Well, let's give a huge round of applause. That is a lot of folks for 30 years, so congratulations to everybody. And what we've done is we reached out to everybody. We're congratulating today, and we actually asked for some photos of then and now. And so we have a few members who submitted a couple of photos. So we want to share what we received. So here's a thank you, Mary, for sending in your then and now pictures. So as you can see here, 1990 to 2020. Still looking good. And JP Chimienti, hi JP, looking good there. So thanks for sending in those pictures. All right, let's jump to our 35-year category. Okay, we've got Martin Alvarez, Alan Baba, Kamiko Berger, Inder Bandal, Tommy Byfield, Han Chang, Tammy Farger, Patricia Felice, Mark Gisler, Diane Grant, Scott Grant, Hardev Grewal, Cecilia Hernandez, Michael Lashinger, Fu Din Lei, Bu Nok Lu, Arnaldo Matos, Brad Mortensen, Jim Myrick, Karen Nelson, Eric Schoberg, Donald Teague, Douglas Wells, and Jimmy Wu. All right, so here we thank you, Karen, for sending in these great pictures. Karen back in 1985, and there she is now in 2020, looking better than ever. Thank you, Karen. And Gon Lee, look at you, looking good. So thanks for sending in that picture. Again, folks, if you know anybody today who we're congratulating, please reach out and congratulate them. All right, 40 years, here we go. Richard Ambriz, Rayanne Arias, Sadiq Kanok, Terry Castro, Ralph Chelino, Jerry Chen, Larry Grattan, Harold Guries, Agnes Hernandez, Mary Hussey, Rosa Loiza, Alan Mueller, John Pavlovich, Dennis Perez, Frederick Fares, Al Rambode, Joseph Randazzo, Susan Reed, Joe Rosa, An Shin, Mario Solario, Jan Stubas, Rick Vague, and Sherman Zell. Congratulations to everybody, and thank you, Terry, for sending in these pictures. So there she is, 1980, and now in 2020. Thank you, Terry. Congratulations, and thanks for sharing. All right, are we ready for 45 years? Here it goes. We've got Elizabeth Burton, Paul Christopoulos, Patricia Conlin, Clint Cox, John Giorgiani, Paul Haros, Barbara Coons, John Lyons, Wanda Olinger, Ricky Reich, Ronald Randazzo, and Rose Togami. Wow, 45 years. Congratulations, everybody. But we're not done. We keep going. We've got a couple here's John. Oh, John, thank you for sending in these pictures. There you are, 1975 to 2020. Wow. Look at you, looking good. Hang in there. Thank you for sharing. That looks great. All right. Last but not least, we got 50 years. Let's give it a drum roll here. So let's congratulate Al Cook, Roger Dana, Eric Jufrida, Joseph Guerra, and Leona Nod. Wow, 50 years with SCAOR. That is amazing. Congratulations to all of you, to everybody. We've got a picture here submitted by Eric. Thank you, Eric, for sending that in. This is such a huge success, and thank you for your service. Everybody is going to receive in the mail a service pin from SCAOR. So expect that here in the next couple of weeks, and congratulations to everybody. All right. So that's always one of the fun things we do. I certainly miss the opportunity to be able to invite everybody up to the front of the room and take a picture with all of you. So that's why we asked everybody to send in some photos. And so thank you to everybody who did. Apologies that we couldn't do it in person, but didn't want to miss an opportunity to congratulate and thank all of you. So kudos and congratulations. All right, I know we're a little we're behind here, so I'm going to keep the ball rolling here. So let me introduce our second corporate sponsor, Keith Bishop. Keith is a senior account executive with Old Republic Home Protection. Hi, Keith. Welcome.
Hey, Sandy. How you doing?
Good.
Your background is groovy. I love it.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
a fantastic one. And by the way, all you agents are looking super awesome out there. I don't know what you're doing, but you're all eating your grapefruit or something because you're all looking really good. Yes, I'm one of your corporate sponsors. I'm with Old Republic Home Protection, and I'm definitely here to serve you. I want to help make sure that I build your business, make it as strong as possible. We're a little bit more unique as home warranty. We don't sell our warranty to the general public like some of the other companies. We sell it directly through our agent partners such as yourself. So I definitely want to align with you. I want to help build your business stronger, better than ever before. Been a lot of changes in our environment, a lot of changes in how we do our business. So we have some new and improved systems in place. If you go to orhp.com, that's WORHP.com, you can find our pump up your volume for the rest of 2020 and moving into 2021. So if we can help you drive more business to you, get more of those listings, get more closings, and obviously help people get their dream home, or of course help them migrate, because that might be what they need to do, especially with new Prop 19. Whatever we can do to help support your business, that's what we're here for. So again, please reach out to me. I'm Keith Bishop. You can reach me at keithb@orhp.com, or you can of course go to our website at orhp.com and get all the details and all the information. If you send me an email, I'll also send you a little digital care package to thrive inside and continue strong for 2020 and building up to 2021. So God bless you all. Everybody have a fantastic Thanksgiving, and thank you, Sandy, for allowing me to be here today.
Thank you, Keith. God bless, and happy Thanksgiving to you too.
Thank you.
All right. Now I get the pleasure to introduce our past president, Gustavo Gonzalez. Gustavo is going to give us our C.A.R. updates today. And Gustavo is the broker owner of Valley View Properties. He's been a property manager and licensed realtor since 2000. He served as president of SCAOR last year, and he was elected Realtor of the Year back in 2014 and Volunteer of the Year in 2015. So welcome, Gustavo. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Sandy. Let's give it up for Sandy. Has she done an amazing job this year or what? Wow, Sandy, thank you for all your leadership and commitment this year during COVID. You've done phenomenal. Okay, everybody, my name is Gustavo Gonzalez. I'm filling in for our very own Kevin Jokester Cole, who did an amazing job this year for us as our regional rep, representing all the California Association of Realtors directors. So with that, let me thank all of our C.A.R. directors. These are individuals that are coming to countless hours of meetings and representing all of you at the C.A.R. level. And they are, here we go, Ryan Alter, Colleen and Dennis Badagliaco, Jen Beeler, Frank Casillas, Greg Carlstad, Will Shea, Kevin Cole, James Dill, Lawrence Farger, Lisa Faria, myself, Doug Goss, Greg Haas, Stephen Hanley, Ann Hansen, Sandy Jameson, Robert Kulig, Carl Lee, Barbara Limberis, Elizabeth Monley, Roberta Moore, Tricia Motter, John Pinto, Carl San Miguel, Mike Sibilia, Rick Smith, Anti, and our very own David Walsh, who is not only a C.A.R. director, but he will be our president next year, representing all 100,000 plus realtors in the state of California. So thank you, Dave, for that. So really quick, most people don't know what we do at C.A.R. So let me rattle off all the different committees that we are assigned to participate in. There is a assistant regional chairs, Business Technology Forum, California Homeownership, CREPAC. There's the Federal Fair Housing and Diversity, Forums on Forums, Global Real Estate Forum, Housing Affordability Fund, Homeownership, Investment Housing, Investment Subcommittee, Legal Action Funds, Legislative, Local Government Forum, Land Use, MLS Policy, Nominating, Professional Development, Professional Standards, Public Policy, Realtor Action Fund, Realtor Risk Management, Strategic Planning, Standard Forms, Transaction and Regulatory Taxation, and Young Professionals Network. These are all the things that all your C.A.R. directors are doing on your behalf during our C.A.R. meetings. Now, let's get to the meat of this. So there's 3 propositions I want to talk to you about. The first one is the one that C.A.R. really pushed hard. We spent over $35 million on this proposition. This was Prop 19. And this is the one that allows us to transfer our property tax basis from one house to the other. So this is how it works. If I bought a house 20 years ago and my basis on my property tax is $100,000 today, and I want to buy a new house for $1 million because that's what I sold the one that I have on today, I get to transfer that $100,000 to my new $1 million house. That's it. It's really that simple, and it covers the whole state of California. Now, the other thing that's really nice about this is, what if I want to buy $1.5 million house because I want to move to the city closer to kids or whatever the case may be? Now I get to transfer my $100,000 from my old house, and they add the additional $500,000 that I purchased up into. So my tax base goes to $600,000, and that's what I have to pay instead of $1.5 million. So if I were all of you, I would be looking through your Rolodex, calling everybody who's 55 and older, because it only applies to folks that are 55 and over, that have said, I don't want to move because I can't afford the property tax if I did. Well, this goes away with this new law. It's an amazing thing. Now, the next question everybody's asking is, when does it take effect? It takes effect April 1st. So make sure you do it after April 1st, because that's when it's supposed to take effect. There's another part of this law, which is the inheritance tax piece. So if I owned a house and my property tax base is $100,000 and I pass away, my kids now are going to have a stepped up basis as a result. Now, there has been discussion out there that through some trust, you might potentially be able to still stay with that same property tax base. But you need to talk to a trust attorney, somebody who does this for a living and has those sort of answers for you. Okay, let's move on to Prop 15. This was called the split roll proposition, and this would have basically reassessed every commercial and industrial property over $3 million. Why was this not a really good idea? Well, because what would have happened, most of these commercial sites that have a hair salon, a Chinese food restaurant, and a tacos place, they would have all been reassessed with their property taxes, because most of these tenants pay something called triple net, which means they would end up paying that increased property tax. Most of them probably would have to go out of business because they wouldn't be able to afford that increase. The last one that I want to talk to you about is Prop 21. This was another statewide rent control measure funded by Michael Weinstein. He basically did this 2 years ago and he lost by 20 percentage points. He did it this year and he lost worse by 3 million votes. I'm really happy to report out that the state of California has said no to rent control, not once, but twice. But even so, our state legislator has passed a statewide rent control measure, AB 1482, that went into effect in January. We don't need any more rent control. That takes away from our private property rights, and it makes it harder to produce more housing, which we are all about, is producing more housing as well. Now, for those of you that don't know, and if you do own property here in the city of San Jose, we have 4 ordinances that we have to manage as property providers that have rent controlled units. The Housing Payment Equity Ordinance, the Apartment Rent Ordinance, the Tenant Protection Ordinance, and the Ellis Act Ordinance. As a matter of fact, if you are selling a house that has an unpermitted 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit in the back, you are required to pay a moving fee for that tenant if you want to move those people out before you sell. And that can run you in the tune of about $17,000. Those are your private property rights being taken away by your current city council members, you guys, who make these rules. So make sure that you are involved and you know who you're voting for. That's all the time I have. God bless everybody. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Gustavo. Thank you for that update. That was great. Thanks for having you, and thank you for all your leadership last year, too, and for setting me up so well. So, all right, next up, Mike Sibilia is online with us today. He's going to be giving us our updates from NAR. Mike Sibilia has been a licensed real estate agent for over 30 years. He owns and operates 3 Keller Williams brokerages in California. He is a past president of SCAOR back in 2011, and he was also elected Realtor of the Year in 2012. So, hi, Mike. Welcome.
Good morning, Sandy. Thank you very much. It's we had our NAR meetings over the last couple of weeks. They were virtual, just like our May meetings, and the meetings were for 2 weeks. So I'll give you a very condensed version in less than 7 minutes. So hang on. I'm also editing on the fly as well because I want to keep your time, keep things on target. So I do recommend that you go to the NAR website for more in-depth information on this. I do want to report that the membership of the association has hit an all-time high, surpassing the previous record in 2007. And it's projected by the end of the year to have 1,424,000 paid members, um, again in 2020. With the COVID, non-dues revenue is off its projections by the tune of $10 million, but it was more than made up by the cost savings achieved through hiring freezes, reduced travel, and as a result of COVID and all the other measures that NAR put into place. So we're a pretty strong organization in that regard. I want to talk a little bit about the federal policy issues that the directors passed. At the board of directors meeting. They approved a policy recommending a new leadership structure for the Federal Housing Finance Agency, consisting of bipartisan 5-person panels with these members appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Another approved for tax relief policies that would bring relief for homeowners who are discouraged from selling their current home because of the tax burden that would result from the current capital gains tax rules. The current rules compound housing inventory shortages and force people to stay in a home even when it is no longer meet their needs. Also, passing a policy to lower the barriers to the creation of more residential for sale inventory. Examples of such incentives would be tax credits for converting commercial properties to residential units, and tax credits for training or hiring residential construction workers. The board also approved a number of changes to NAR's land use, property rights, and environmental policy positions, including streamlining and modernizing language on the global climate change to emphasize the risk to real estate and sustainability. The directors passed some MLS rules to approve a series of recommendations aimed at bringing more consistent standards to MLSs across the country, make participants to correct accuracies, require MLSs to put processes in place to flag potential fair housing violations, and to notify brokers of such language. The new rule goes into effect the first of the year, but we don't have to deal with this because MLS listings is way in front of the curve on this. The big topic that you may have, that's made some news you may have heard about was in professional standards. The board approved a proposal intended to hold members to a higher standard of ethics in everything they do, not just transactions. Realtors who engage in hate speech or discriminatory conduct, or even outside of their real estate practice, could face disciplinary action under the Code of Ethics. The recommendations came from the Professional Standards Committee, but were also formally supported by the Diversity, Fair Housing Policy, Professional Development, and Membership Policy and Board Jurisdiction Committees before going to the Board of Directors. The changes go into effect immediately, but do not apply to members' past activities or actions. Realtors who make discriminatory remarks on their business or personal social media accounts can be subject to disciplinary action. The new rules extend Article 10 of the Code, which already prohibits discrimination in professional services and employment practices, to include discriminatory speech and conduct. Article 10 prohibits realtors from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, family status, natural origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. The new standard of practice 10.5 will now state realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs against members of those protected classes. The board also approved a revision to NAR's bylaws to expand the definition of public trust to include all discrimination against the protected classes under Article 10, as well as all fraud. Going forward, associations will be required to inform, in our case, the California Department of Real Estate, of final ethics decisions that hold realtors in violation of the code in instances involving real estate related activities and transactions where there is reason to believe that public trust may have been violated. I want to give you a little bit of background. Prior to the vote, the hate speech proposal was reviewed and thoroughly and thoughtfully debated by the members. Some suggested that the code shouldn't change, and instead, the proposal should become a conduct suggestion. Others expressed concern that the new standard could be viewed as violating the First Amendment right to free speech. Other board members welcomed the no tolerance policy against hate speech, saying that discrimination on the part of any real estate professional reflects poorly on the entire membership. There was a high clash of ideas and a low class of egos. I was extremely proud to be part of the discussions. Again, I urge you to go onto the NAR website to get more in-depth information on this, as well as the other items that I reported. And finally, it's been a pleasure to represent SCORE and the California Association of Realtors as an NAR Board of Director. My board term is expiring, and I leave it in great hands. Madam President, that concludes my report.
Thank you for that, Mike. We do have a couple of questions for you if you have a minute.
Absolutely.
So one member, with respect to this hate speech topic, wants to know if there's going to be a definition of hate speech. What exactly does that mean, and how is that defined?
You know, that's a great question. That was debated vigorously on the floor, and basically, at what point does it become hate speech, and at one point does it not reflect? It's going to go a lot to the local organizations as defining what that's going to be, and SCORE will do a great job, and a lot of training that's going to go into effect, and a lot of work on a local level. So
not necessarily going to give a definition coming down from NAR. It's going to be up for interpretation by each local association.
It is going to be defined by the local association.
Okay.
With guidance, with guidance from NAR and C.A.R.
Okay, well that's good. Okay. All right. And then a lot of our members would like to know about this new breaking news that just came out about the Department of Justice filing against NAR for this antitrust. Do you have any information on that today?
No more than what everyone else has. Basically, it's a couple of things. It just was announced yesterday, I believe, and it involves a couple issues. The two main points is that non-realtors are to be provided access to lockboxes. I don't know how that's going to be decided, how that's going to happen. And the other thing is that buyers are to be given the information as to what the buyer's agent is to be paid. More information it was just announced yesterday. More information will be coming out in the next few days.
Okay, so what I just heard was that non-realtors will be able to gain access to lockboxes, and the buyer's agent commission or the cooperative commission will be published to the public.
Correct.
Those are the two main components of it.
That's what little information I got, which was the same as everyone else received yesterday, is what I know.
Got it. All right. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. Let me look at the questions here. I think we hit on most of these here. Yep. So great. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Sandy.
All right. Next up, let me introduce our fine-looking president-elect there. Look at you, Doug Goss. Doug is the broker associate for Keller Williams Bay Area Estates. He's been in the real estate business for over 26 years. He is currently our president-elect, and today he's got some bylaws changes to go over with you, and this is a procedural thing that we have to do. We have to, anytime we make changes to our bylaws, we need to bring it to the membership and get the vote. So Doug's going to give you a quick summary of some of those small changes we have, and there you go. Take it away, Doug.
Great, thanks, Sandy. Last but not least, I get to present the most exciting part of today's event. Today, I'm presenting to you the proposed changes to the SCAOR bylaws. These changes came about due to changes at the C.A.R. and NAR level. I headed a task force to review and implement the required changes, as well as review and recommend additional changes. Everyone who registered for this event should have received a link to these changes in advance. In my presentation, changes that were required verbatim by the C.A.R. model bylaws are in the red text and not highlighted. In addition, there were several minor grammar changes and formatting changes that are also underlined in red text. The changes highlighted in yellow are changes that were not required by the C.A.R. model bylaws, but recommended and implemented. The changes highlighted in green are changes recommended by the task force. I will go through each page and discuss these items highlighted in yellow and green, and if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. At the end of my presentation, you'll be asked to vote to approve these changes to our bylaws. On page 1, I'm not going to go over all the C.A.R. model bylaw changes that were required. Those are the ones in the red text. But in the green, you see the date of the month of the revision of September was added. In addition, we added counseling to Article 2, Section 1A to be consistent with the model bylaws. On page 2, association was removed from Article 4, Section 1 to be consistent with the bylaws. Page 3 and 4, these were just changes to the model bylaws. Page 5, Article 5, Section 8, qualifications of property owner members. This was removed as this is not a C.A.R. approved class of membership. Next page, just C.A.R. model bylaws. On page 7, text was added to Articles 5, Section 13B to be consistent with the C.A.R. model bylaws. On page 8, Article 6, Section 2B, member discipline. This revised reference to and procedure for member discipline related to harassment. A separate and more detailed model anti-harassment policy has been created to exist outside the bylaws. The bylaws will instead simply refer to and incorporate the policy by reference. By removing the harassment policy language from the bylaws, by action of the Board of Directors, SCAOR can more nimbly and appropriately develop and revise their policy as needed. Next page, simply C.A.R. model bylaw changes. On page 10, Article 6, Section 11, privileges and duties of property owner members was again removed as this is not a C.A.R. approved class of membership. Page 11, model bylaw changes. Page 12, model bylaw changes. Page 13, text was added in sections 3 and 4 to be consistent with the C.A.R. model bylaws. Page 14, again, text was added for consistency with the bylaws. In Article 9, Section 4E, this was deleted as this text regarding reinstatement was duplicated and addressed in Section 5. Text was also added to Article 10, Section 1 to clarify the president-elect would not automatically ascend to the presidency should he or she be removed from office. Next page, modifications were made to Article 10, Section 3 to clarify the president-elect for SCRA and the immediate past president of SCAOR will be included in the 15 members of the Board of Directors, and directors, including the past president, will serve a 3-year term, and the president-elect of SCRA will serve a 1-year term. Text correction was made at Article 10, Section 5(1)E to change directorship to officer or director position, and text was added to Article 10, Section 5(1)E to clarify the commencement of the nominating committee interview process. On the next page, Text was added to Article 10, Section 5.2 includes secondary memberships. Text was also added to Section 6 to clarify the process to fill a vacancy in the Board of Directors. Article 10, Section 7 was replaced with text from C.A.R. model bylaws. The exception to that was item number 5. This text was replaced to address SCAOR's Board of Directors attendance policy, which differs from C.A.R.'s policy. These are the changes again to Section 7 that were replaced with C.A.R. model bylaws. Again, at the top, the continuation of the replacement with C.A.R. model bylaws. And in Article 11, Sections 2, 3, and 4, these sections were replaced with text from C.A.R. model bylaws as recommended. Section 11, 2, 3, and 4, again, this continues the replacement of the text from the C.A.R. model bylaws. Text was added to Article 11, Section 5 to clarify that the Board of Directors may continue to transact business but not approve any motions in the lack of a quorum, and that directors participating via conference call or video are considered present. The text membership meeting was added to Article 11, Section 6A, as this section was divided into 2 subsections for consistency with C.A.R. model bylaws. Article 11, 6B was added for consistency with the model bylaws. Under committees, there were several changes. Text was modified in Article 12, Section 2 to clarify that standing committee chairs shall be selected by the president and the co-chairs selected by the president-elect. The following changes were made to Article 12, Section 2 for standing committees. Finance Committee was changed to Strategic Planning and Finance Committee. Government Relations was changed to Local Government Relations, LRC, or LGR. Actually, it should be LGR. Sorry about that. Local Candidate Recommendation, COM, was changed to Local Candidate Recommendation Committee. And the following committees have been removed from standing committees: Ombudsman, Leadership Development, Membership, Commercial, Education, YPM, and Installation. This does not mean that these committees cannot exist. They are just no longer part of the standing committees for SCAOR. In this section, Article 12, Section 7 was modified to simply state that the president has the power to remove any member from a committee. And in this section, Section 1B was added to be consistent with the C.A.R. model bylaws. Okay, Spencer, are there any questions that I need to address? Any questions from the members?
No, it looks like no questions came through, so I'm about to launch the poll. Yeah, let's go ahead. And we are going to launch the poll. So if you can go ahead and vote yes or no on do you approve the revisions to the SCAOR bylaws. We'll leave that open for a few moments while people vote. We would like everyone to vote, please. So if you are out there watching the webinar, please go ahead and cast your vote. We'll leave this open for a few more moments. It does look like it's passing by an overwhelming majority, which is nice to see. All right, great. So looks like we are going to end the poll, and I should be able to share the results. So looks like attendees should now be able to view the results on their screen. And it looks like we are all set.
Madam President, that concludes my report.
Wow, thank you, Doug, for that. I know that that was a huge undertaking, and over a year worth of work and meetings went into incorporating all those changes that came down from C.A.R. and really a lot of thought went into trying to clean that up and get all those tweaks and fine tuning. And I know you spent an incredible amount of time on it, along with many of us. And so thank you, Doug, for that. Thanks again, and thank you for your leadership. I'm looking forward to having you next year. So should be all set now. Okay, so that's that's what we had on the agenda for today. So I wanted to just take a quick moment and thank everybody for tuning in today. Thanks for bearing with us. I'm sorry that we went a little bit over time. I want to thank all of the panelists and participants in our meeting today. Thank you so much. And I want to also thank the staff for everything that they do, everything they've done this year, all of their commitment and excellence to our membership and to all of the volunteers here. And I want to also thank the board of directors, all of our committee members, committee chairs, all of our volunteers, everyone who contributes their time and energy to make this such a great association. So I want to thank everybody. And with that, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe, stay COVID-free, and I hope to see you very, very soon when everything starts to let up. So, all right, everybody, thank you. That concludes our meeting today.